The stars above Venera, 9, shimmered faintly through the smoke of bombardment, each light dimmed by the ash of a dying world. Admiral Severick's call stood at the viewport of his flagship, arms folded behind his back as the surface below rippled with controlled fire. The planet's oceans boiled, its cities fractured into molten veins of light. His expression was one of faint irritation rather than triumph. Another human colony erased. Another tedious task done well. He turned slightly toward his second-in-command, a smaller avian creature with trembling wings. "How long until planetary silence?" Severix asked, his voice smooth, almost bored. 3 minutes, Admiral. Their transmissions are erratic, mostly distress calls. Severix exhaled through his nostrils. Predictable. They always cry when the end arrives. The aide hesitated, then tapped a control on the console. The bridge speakers hissed. Through the static came a fragile human voice, high, scared, unmistakably a child's. "Please, someone help us. They're burning the sky." The sound lingered, cutting through the sterile air. For the briefest instant, Severix's eyes flicked toward the speakers. Then, just as quickly, he smiled, a thin, humorless curve of the mouth. "Mute it. There's no need to listen to ghosts." The aide obeyed, perhaps too quickly. Silence returned, except for the distant thunder of orbital cannons. Severix looked back at the world below and spoke almost to himself. "The Council says they're a contagion. I begin to see their point." A flicker of light streaked across the viewport, a final atmospheric detonation. Venera, 9, ceased to exist in the same moment its signal reached the stars. Hours later, in the council chamber of Alarian Prime, the victors congratulated themselves beneath domes of shifting light. Representatives from 100 species reclined in gilded gravity thrones. Crystal goblets floated between clawed, scaled, and metallic hands. The air smelled of ozone and arrogance. "The human problem," declared Minister Rovar, his voice echoing from a throat lined with steel plates, "has been resolved. One less primitive nuisance cluttering the rim sectors." Laughter rippled through the hall. Only Severix remained motionless, his dark uniform uncreased, his gaze cold and measured. He didn't join the laughter. He had seen the child's message, and though he felt no pity, he disliked disorder, emotional noise, in a clean operation. Another counselor raised a toast. "To the purification of chaos. May this be the last of their kind." Glasses collided softly. Severix raised his own out of formality, but his voice cut through the murmur. "The last? Minister, there are still colonies unaccounted for." Rovar waved the jeweled hand. "Fragments. Scavengers. They'll fade without help. Do not tell me you fear them." "I fear inefficiency," Severix replied. "Unfinished work invites consequences." The minister smirked. "Consequences from humans? You overestimate vermin." The chamber filled again with laughter. Severix said nothing. His mind lingered on the recording, the child's voice, the plea for help. Not for what it was, but for where it originated. The data packet had included a signature code, a beacon registered not to the colonies, but to Earth itself. He turned his glass slowly in his hand. Earth, the forgotten origin. The one world the Council never officially acknowledged destroying. It had been left quiet, quarantined, and deemed self-contained. Now, it seemed, someone had survived long enough to call for help. When the session adjourned, Severix exited alone through the vaulted corridors of the Hall of Order. The marble beneath his boots shimmered with embedded circuitry, reflecting the Council's insignia, a ring of stars circling a single eye. Outside the chamber, aides followed with data slates, listing new assignments, treaties, and congratulatory memos. He dismissed them with a wave. In the solitude of his command shuttle, he replayed the final seconds of Venera 9's transmission. The child's words were faint under the static, but unmistakable. Not a cry for mercy. A warning. "They'll hear us." Severix paused the recording and stared into the darkened viewport. He didn't know who they referred to, but instinct whispered that he should have silenced the colony sooner. He hated that thought. It was too close to fear. Meanwhile, far across the void, the signal reached a small, blue world hidden behind encrypted traffic and false energy readings. Earth. Deep beneath the surface, under the frozen layers of what was once Antarctica, a massive array of listening towers hummed to life. The message played in a dim control chamber lit by red emergency bands. The officers present were silent, their faces pale in the glow. At the center stood Commander Aisha Rahman, a tall woman with streaks of gray in her hair and a voice too calm for the moment. She listened twice, eyes fixed on the waveform dancing across the screen. The room felt colder when the child's last words faded. Her adjutant broke the silence. "Ma'am, the origin matches the Venera 9 beacon. Council fleet activity confirmed in orbit. Total loss of life." Aisha's hand tightened around the console edge. "And the source of transmission?" "Earth-born citizen. Identified as Civilian Refugee Transport 9-2, designation E-Class." The weight of that final letter seemed to press on the air itself. The room waited. No one breathed. Aisha straightened slowly. "Activate Leviathan Protocol." "Ma'am." The officer's voice cracked. "That's restricted under global treaty." Her gaze turned toward him, steady, unflinching. "They killed one of ours." The chamber security lights shifted from red to white, cycling upward in sequence. Massive locks disengaged beneath the ice, releasing the dormant systems buried for generations. Engines older than the current governments groaned to life. Data streams cascaded through forgotten channels, linking hidden bases, sealed archives, ghost satellites. Aisha stood before the holographic map of the galaxy, watching red markers bloom where humanity's colonies once were. Each one marked a grave. "For decades," she said quietly, "we let them believe we were broken. We let them laugh." She looked up as the center of the map flared blue, Earth's defense network awakening. "Let them keep laughing, until they see what silence was buying us." Outside, the ice cracked. Lights surged through the glaciers, tracing the outlines of titanic shapes buried beneath, vessels forged in an age when Earth had sworn never to make war again. The ancient fleet stirred, its hulls black as obsidian, its weapons sleeping but hungry. In orbit, human satellites began aligning themselves, silent and precise. Across the world, families paused as power grids flickered and systems reconfigured. No one knew what had changed, only that something vast had turned its gaze outward. Back on her command deck, Aisha Rahman closed the transmission file. The child's voice had ended, but the echo remained in her thoughts like a heartbeat. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "You didn't die unheard." She gave the final order. Broadcast containment silence. From this moment, Earth speaks with one voice. Somewhere beyond the stars, aboard his returning flagship, Admiral Severix frowned as his sensors detected an anomaly from the Sol system, an energy spike impossible for a primitive world. He didn't yet know what it meant. He only knew that for the first time in years, the void between stars felt smaller. And listening, the hum beneath the ice had deepened into a pulse, a low, rhythmic vibration that made the command decks tremble. Commander Aisha Rahman stood before the panoramic glass of the subterranean hangar as colossal shadows stirred within the frost. The black hulls of ancient warships emerged like sleeping titans breaking free from centuries of hibernation. Their forms were harsh, angular, and unfamiliar even to modern eyes, designs from a time when humanity built machines for extinction rather than exploration. "Status on reactor synchronization?" she asked, her voice cutting through the mechanical noise. 70% and climbing, replied Lieutenant Ebendross, his eyes darting between monitors. "Graviton fields are stable. But these readings, Commander, these ships predate the fusion age. By all logic, they shouldn't still function." "They weren't built on logic," Aisha said softly. "They were built on fear. And fear doesn't die easily." The command crew exchanged uncertain looks, but continued their tasks. Every motion in the room felt measured, deliberate. No celebration, no excitement, only the quiet gravity of awakening something that should have remained myth. Far above, orbiting satellites beamed encrypted data bursts toward Earth's moon. The silent outposts stationed there came alive, aligning ancient artillery grids. Humanity's ghosts were awakening in synchrony, a machine network that had slept beneath the arrogance of alien oversight. Across the void, in the grand war chambers of Alarian Prime, Admiral Severix Call reviewed the reports arriving one after another. His screens flickered with static and confusion. The Council scout fleet dispatched toward the Sol system had gone dark. 50 ships, each armed with planetary-class ordnance, now vanished without a trace. He replayed the last transmission, a short burst of panic and interference. A blurred image, a shadow moving faster than the camera could focus. Then nothing. "Replay the telemetry," Severix ordered. The technicians' spines rattled as they complied. The data reappeared, repeating the last coherent frame, a ship of human origin but wrong. Its shape was sharp, seamless, predatory. No visible propulsion trails, no heat signatures. Just a cold silhouette against the sun. That, Severick said, leaning closer, is not a colonial vessel. His aide swallowed. The Council insists the fleet was lost to a cosmic anomaly. Severick's laugh was low, humorless. They always choose ignorance when the truth offends them. He tapped the display, freezing the image of the mysterious human craft. Send me everything we have on old Earth warfare. Everything the Council sealed after the Unification Treaty. Sir, that data is... Do it, he interrupted, before someone decides to erase it. As the aide hurried away, Severick turned toward the observation window. Outside, the capital's sky glowed with tranquil hues of lavender and silver, colors of peace, the Council always said. But peace, he was beginning to understand, was only the pause between extinctions. Back on Earth, Aisha Rahman walked the length of the hangar floor as the first of the reactivated vessels rose from its cradle. The massive ship, designated Erebus, hovered effortlessly, its dark plating absorbing the floodlights. Ancient sigils ran along its sides, Unitas Prima, First Unity Fleet. The letters had faded but not vanished. Eben watched in awe. Commander, these systems are beyond anything we have now. Whoever built them wasn't planning to live through what came next, Aisha finished. They built a warning. We're the ones answering it. A notification blinked on her wrist console. Earth's orbital defense net had detected movement, alien ships testing the outer limits of the solar system again, small craft moving in cautious patterns. They're looking for their missing scouts, she murmured. Eben hesitated. Do we engage? Not yet, she said. Let them look. Curiosity is a form of fear, and fear is useful. She moved to the central console, where a holographic projection of the system flickered before her. The human colonies were red dots, extinguished flames. Earth glowed in blue, a single light surrounded by emptiness. They think we're just this, she said. A fragile planet clinging to the last of its pride. Let's not correct them too soon. Her reflection on the glass was stark, eyes sharp, expression unreadable. Beneath that composure, though, lived something darker. The memory of losing her son during the first wave of Council purges, when the colonies begged Earth to intervene, and Earth had stayed silent. She had promised herself that silence would never return. Commander, Eben said quietly, if we do this, if we truly reveal what we've hidden, they'll come with everything they have. They already have, she replied. They just don't know they've lost yet. On Alarian Prime, Severick read through the declassified human archives, fragmented war footage, reports, intercepted transmissions from centuries past. He saw images of burning skies, ruined continents, and the word Leviathan repeated like a curse. Humanity's final project before the Great Withdrawal. The files ended abruptly, redacted by the Council's censors. He leaned back in his chair, claws tapping the armrest. Leviathan, he muttered. So the monsters still remember their name. A young officer entered, hesitant. Admiral, the Council requests your presence. They wish to issue a public reassurance. The loss of the scout fleet will be classified as a navigational error. Severick didn't stand. They're blind, he said, and blindness in command is fatal. Sir. He rose slowly, turning to face the officer. Prepare a covert observation vessel. We're going to sol ourselves. I need to see what's waking up there. The officer hesitated. That's unauthorized. Then let it be my mistake, Severick said. His tone was final. As he left the chamber, the young officer caught a glimpse of his face, no longer bored, no longer superior. Something human flickered behind his eyes, the first trace of apprehension. On Earth, Erebus and her sister ships ascended through the atmosphere in formation. The night sky glowed as they broke through the clouds, the auroras igniting above them like banners. Aisha stood on the command deck, watching continents shrink beneath her. The engines made no sound, only the faint vibration of power too ancient for words. In orbit, the communication array pulsed once, then fell silent. Across the planet, civilian transmissions cut out simultaneously, replaced by a single encoded phrase repeated in every language, Leviathan active. In the darkness between stars, distant observers registered the change. Sensors flickered. Energy readings spiked. And far away, aboard his flagship, Severick's sensors caught the pulse. His crew scrambled to recalibrate, alarms flaring across the bridge. "Report," he demanded. "Unknown origin, quantum burst from Sol. No pattern recognized." Severix's jaw tightened. "It's a pattern. We just don't want to see it." He turned toward the viewport as the light faded, leaving the stars cold and watchful once more. "They're waking up," he whispered, "and we taught them who to hate." He gave the order to jump to Sol. As the engines ignited, and his fleet vanished into the fold stream, the last image transmitted from Earth showed a fleet of black ships rising into space, silent, disciplined, unstoppable. The galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to hold its breath. The stars tore open as Severix's fleet emerged from the fold stream on the edge of the Sol system. What had once been the familiar hum of travel now felt like the breath of something ancient exhaling from the void. His ships, sleek and silver, arranged themselves in tactical formation around his flagship Vigilant. The systems registered nothing at first, no signals, no transmissions, only the cold pulse of distant planetary orbits. But the silence itself was wrong. It was too precise, too deliberate. "Scanners show minimal activity," reported his helmsman. "Earth appears dormant." Severix narrowed his eyes. Dormant things are often the most dangerous. He leaned closer to the console, studying the data feed. The entire system glowed faintly with electromagnetic distortion. Not interference. Coordination. Something was synchronizing across multiple planetary nodes, each one echoing a pattern he couldn't decipher. He had seen this before long ago, in archived recordings of the old wars. The memory unsettled him. "Hold position," he ordered. "Launch recon drones. No transmissions. I want silence." One by one, the small, crystalline probes detached from their bays and drifted toward the inner planets. Severix clasped his hands behind his back, his reflection merging with the stars in the viewport. He thought of the Council, still laughing in their marble halls, dismissing his warnings as paranoia. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps he was chasing phantoms. But deep inside, he knew that the phantoms were real and awake. Across the system, the Erebus and her sister ships moved like shadows among asteroids. Their hulls reflected no light, their engines emitted no heat. On Erebus, Commander Aisha Rahman stood beside the central holographic display as it mapped Severix's fleet. The enemy formation was disciplined, professional. That she respected. The rest she would dismantle. Eben's voice was calm but tense. "Admiral Severix himself leads them. He's the only one who took the bait." Aisha studied the map, eyes sharp and distant. "Good. That means he's the one who can understand what comes next." The room was silent except for the low resonance of the ship's reactors. Around her, human officers worked in focused unison, their movements synchronized with quiet efficiency. They didn't cheer, didn't shout, didn't show triumph. They simply prepared. Every console, every calculation was a step toward inevitability. "Status of the field?" Aisha asked. "Fully charged," replied Eben. "The wormhole lattice is stable across the belt. We can strike anywhere instantly." "Then we don't strike," she said. "Not yet. Let them think the gods are testing them." Eben frowned. "With respect, Commander, if we wait too long." "They'll start talking," she interrupted. "Fear spreads faster through words than through fire." Her logic was brutal, but it carried the same quiet conviction that had drawn loyalty from even the hardest soldiers. For Aisha, victory wasn't measured in destruction. It was measured in silence, in the moment the enemy realized resistance had no meaning. Severix watched his drones vanish one after another. No explosions, no interference, just disappearance. His communications officer stammered, "Admiral, all contact lost." "No data recovery." "Not lost," Severix murmured. "Taken." He studied the readings again. The void around them shimmered faintly, shadows shifting in impossible directions. His instinct screamed. "Shields up," he barked. Too late. A ripple tore through the fleet, an invisible wave of gravity, folding reality itself. Two cruisers blinked out of existence. A moment later, their signatures reappeared, on the opposite side of the solar system. Adrift, power drained, crews unconscious. The message was unmistakable. "We can touch you whenever we choose." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Severix turned slowly toward the viewport. "So that's how it is." He gestured to open a private channel. "To whoever commands this system, identify yourself." There was no response, only the steady hum of static. He was about to repeat the demand when a voice came through, low and composed. "You're trespassing." Severix froze. The voice was unmistakably human, female, calm as stone. "Commander Amon, I presume," he said carefully. "I was beginning to think you preferred hiding." "We preferred peace," Aisha replied. "You mistook it for weakness." "I didn't," Severix said, "but my council did. I warned them." "Then you share their guilt." Her words carried no hatred, only precision. The silence after them was worse than any threat. Severix spoke again, quieter now. "I came to see what you're becoming. And I think I already know. You've built something beyond war." "No," Aisha said. "We've remembered it." The transmission cut abruptly. Severix stared at the empty comm feed, feeling the faintest tremor in his chest. He'd commanded hundreds of battles, extinguished worlds without hesitation, yet the calm in her voice unsettled him more than any weapon. He turned to his crew. "Full retreat vector. We leave the system now." The helmsman hesitated. "Sir, retreat? The council." "Will call me a coward," Severix finished. "Better a coward than an obituary." Before the order could be executed, the void around them distorted again. The stars stretched and bent, revealing black silhouettes, Earth's fleet surrounding them in perfect silence. Dozens of ships, each motionless, their hulls darker than space itself. Eben glanced toward Aisha on Erebus. "They've seen us now." "Then we show them," she said. The fleet's systems synchronized with a soundless pulse. Every alien ship's targeting display flickered, weapon locks dissolving into static. Severix's bridge descended into chaos as systems failed one by one. Engines, weapons, life support, each subsystem severed by precision strikes that didn't even register as attacks. Aisha watched from her command deck, her expression unreadable. "They're learning what silence costs." Eben looked at her. "Commander, he's transmitting again." She nodded. "Let him." Severix's image appeared, grainy and flickering. His face was composed, though the light behind his eyes betrayed disbelief. "You could destroy us all," he said. "Yet you don't." "We don't need to," Aisha answered. "You'll do it to yourselves. You always do." Her tone was not mocking, merely resigned. For a moment, they regarded one another across the gulf of space, two soldiers shaped by the same truth. Survival demands cruelty, and both had paid its price. Severix inclined his head slightly. "You're not like the others I've fought." "No," she said quietly. "We're the reason you've forgotten how to fight." The transmission ended, and for the first time in his life, Severix gave an order without confidence. "Withdraw to Ilarion. Tell the Council everything." As his fleet limped away, the black ships of Earth did not pursue. They simply watched motionless, their presence an unspoken warning. On Erebus, Aisha stood in silence as the alien vessels vanished into the fold stream. The stars returned to stillness, but the tension in her chest did not ease. Eben approached, uncertain. "You think he'll warn them?" "He'll try," she said. "They won't listen." "Then what happens next?" Aisha's eyes lifted toward the distant constellations, her voice almost a whisper. "Then the galaxy remembers why it left us alone." The hum of the ship deepened as Erebus turned toward stars. The darkness ahead no longer felt empty. It felt expectant, as if the universe itself had begun to listen again. The council chambers were no longer filled with laughter. The air hung heavy with static and accusation as the holographic map of the galaxy burned red. Fleets gone. Outposts silent. Communication hubs erased as if swallowed by the void. The representatives shouted over one another, each voice a note of panic in a chorus of denial. And standing in the center of it all, Admiral Severix Call waited for the noise to die. He had returned from Sol with the silence of a haunted man. His once pristine uniform was scorched, his face older. He'd seen what the others hadn't, what they refused to see. When shouting subsided, he spoke with the calm of someone who knew that nothing he said would save them. "They've already won." The words stopped the room. Minister Rovar's metallic voice cracked. "Impossible. They're savages' relics. What can they?" "Adapt," Severix interrupted. "That's what they do. That's all they do. They watch, they endure, and when you mistake patience for weakness, they build gods out of machines." The chamber erupted again, but this time with fear, not pride. Some demanded retaliation. Others called for negotiation. None of them noticed the distant vibration running through the city walls, the hum of approaching gravity distortions. Severix turned toward the grand window, overlooking Ilarion Prime's skyline. The horizon shimmered. Dozens of points of light appeared above the clouds, descending in perfect symmetry. No heat, no sound, just inevitability. The first ships of Earth's fleet had arrived. Too late, he whispered. Sirens blared as defense grids powered up. Cannons turned skyward. In the skies above, the alien armada assembled, radiant and massive, every ship designed for intimidation. Yet when they fired, the beams scattered uselessly against invisible barriers. The human vessels moved like shadows between lightning, unhurried, efficient, unstoppable. On the flagship Erebus, Commander Aisha Rahman stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the holographic projection of Ilarion. She said nothing as the battle unfolded. Each alien salvo was anticipated, countered, neutralized with surgical precision. Eben's voice was tight. "They're deploying planetary shields, Commander." "Orders." "Maintain containment distance," she said. "No orbital strikes. Disable, not destroy." He turned to her, incredulous. "After everything they've done?" She met his gaze. "We don't repeat their lessons. We end them." A sudden tremor rippled through the ship as alien fire glanced off their shielding. Around them, the rest of the fleet adjusted instantly, like a single living organism. The old human war doctrines, swift adaptability, decentralized command, had returned sharper than ever. Severix watched in horror as his world burned, without noise. He opened a transmission to the incoming fleet, desperate, not for victory, but for understanding. "Commander Rahman," he said, "if there's any of you left that remembers mercy, speak now." Aisha's image appeared before him, faint and calm. Behind her, the black void framed her face like a crown. "You came to us in arrogance," she said. "You called us infestation. You hunted our children. We asked for peace, and you mistook silence for surrender." Severix swallowed. "I never wanted this." "But you let it happen," she replied. Outside his window, the human ships descended lower, cutting through clouds like specters. Cities dimmed one by one as power grids failed, not from destruction, but from deliberate precision strikes. Humanity was dismantling an empire the way surgeons cut away rot. "What do you want?" Severix asked, the question hollow with exhaustion. Aisha's eyes flickered, not with anger, but with something colder. A lesson remembered. She signaled her crew. The Erebus emitted a resonant pulse, invisible but devastating in implication. Every alien weapon, every planetary defense node, deactivated in unison. Lights went out across the planet until only the Council Tower remained illuminated. Severix turned back toward the chamber. Ministers cowered beneath tables, the mighty reduced to trembling shapes of panic. He could only whisper, "They've spared us." The floor trembled as human landing craft touched down outside. Columns of light pierced the marble ceiling. Then came silence, complete, suffocating, absolute. Moments later, the council doors opened. A single human envoy stepped inside, Aisha herself, flanked by no guards. Her armor was marked by travel, her presence radiating control. The counselors froze as she approached the central dais. Severix bowed his head slightly. "So it ends here." "It begins here," she corrected. "Your empire is finished, but your people will live. We came not to rule, but to rebuild what you destroyed." The counselors stared in disbelief. "You offer mercy?" "Mercy is earned," she said. "Survival is given. Choose which you want." Rovar rose shakily, his arrogance fractured. "And if we refuse?" Aisha looked at him with an almost pitying calm. "Then extinction continues. But we've had enough of that." Her gaze returned to Severix. "You understood before they did. That's why you'll govern the reconstruction. Not as a conqueror's puppet, but as proof that comprehension is still possible." Severix's throat tightened. "You would trust me after this?" "I would rather trust one who fears truth than 1,000 who hide from it." The chamber fell silent again. Outside, the skies cleared. The human fleet withdrew from orbit, leaving the planet untouched but transformed. Across the galaxy, their message spread faster than light, a broadcast not of threat, but of certainty. The age of the council was over. As Aisha prepared to depart, Severix followed her to the entrance. "What will you do now?" She paused. "Watch," she said. "Wait. Build something better if we can. And if you can't?" Her answer was almost a whisper. "Then we remember what it costs not to." She left without ceremony, her figure dissolving into the light of the transporter field. Severix turned back to the broken council, his voice steady once more. You heard her. We begin again. Far above, in the stillness of space, Erebus and her sister ships drifted in formation around the now quiet planet. Inside the command deck, Aisha stood alone before the viewport, watching the lights of Ilarion fade into starlight. Eben approached cautiously. The fleet reports full control of all systems. No casualties. They're calling it victory. Aisha shook her head. Victories have banners. This has graves. She turned away from a glass, the reflection of the stars flickering across her face like distant memories. Prepare the Accord draft. We'll need diplomats before we need soldiers. Yes, Commander. As he left, she let her hand rest against the cold glass. The galaxy stretched endlessly beyond, silent and vast. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel triumphant, only aware of how fragile peace could be when built on ashes. Her calm link chimed softly. A transmission looped through the static. A child's voice, faint, recorded long ago. Please, someone help us. They're burning the sky. She closed her eyes. The sound didn't hurt anymore. It reminded her why the silence mattered. Outside, Erebus turned slowly toward the edge of the system. The ancient fleet followed, their engines lighting the void like constellations reborn. The galaxy, long ruled by arrogance and apathy, now watched in awe as Earth's ships vanished into the fold stream. And somewhere beyond that silence, beyond the stars themselves, the universe began to whisper again, of balance restored, and of a species once forgotten, now awake.